Eli had chosen IVF. No alpha, no bond, no scent-matched destiny nonsense. Just a contract, a clinic, and a very clear paper trail. That paper trail, apparently, had just caught fire. It started with the soup. Eli had set it on the stove, lentil, store-bought, aggressively average, and turned his attention to his tablet scrolling through a compliance report that someone had definitely tried to falsify and failed. The kitchen window was cracked open despite the cold, city noise bleeding in, sirens far away, traffic, the hum of a place that never really slept. Then his phone rang. Unknown number. Eli frowned and let it ring. If it was work, they could leave a message. If it was marketing, they could choke. If it was his mother... The phone stopped, then rang again. Eli sighed, thumbed the screen. This better not be a poll. "Mr. Rosen?" a man said, voice tight, professional in the way people got when they were trying not to panic. "This is Dr. Harrow from Helix Fertility Center." Eli straightened. "Yes? We need you to come in." "That's vague," Eli said. "And I'm in the middle of dinner. I'm afraid this can't wait." Eli leaned back against the counter, eyes flicking to the pot. "Doctor, unless my embryos escaped containment or developed opinions, I'm not sure why. You're pregnant." The word landed between them like a dropped tray. Eli blinked once, then again. "Already?" "Yes. The implantation took... Well," Eli said faintly, "that's efficient." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Too long." "But," the doctor continued, "there's been a complication." Eli closed his eyes. "Of course there was." "Define complication," he said carefully. "We believe," Dr. Harrow said, voice thinning, "that the wrong alpha sample may have been used during your procedure." The soup boiled over. Liquid hissed onto the burner. The smell of scorched lentils filled the kitchen, sharp and bitter. Eli stared at the stove. "I'm sorry," he said slowly. "Say that again, slower. Preferably with an explanation that doesn't end in a lawsuit. There was a labeling error." "No," Eli cut in. "No, I paid extra. I signed forms. I have copies. You assured me the donor was anonymous, non-bonding, screened, and..." "Yes," Dr. Harrow said quickly. "Yes, absolutely. This was an internal failure. A single-point breakdown." "A single-point breakdown," Eli repeated, very calmly, "that resulted in me being impregnated with the wrong person's genetic material." "Yes." Silence stretched. Eli laughed. It came out wrong. Sharp, breathless, the kind of laugh people made right before screaming. "So," he said, "you're telling me my child has a biological alpha." "Yes. I explicitly did not want that." "I know. And you're telling me this after implantation." "Yes." Eli rubbed his face. His omega glands ached suddenly, a dull pressure at the back of his neck that made no sense. He hadn't gone into heat. He'd taken suppressants. He'd done everything right. "If this alpha tries to contact me," Eli said, voice low, "I will sue this clinic so hard it becomes a case study." There was a small, terrible sound on the other end of the line. A swallow. "Mr. Rosen," Dr. Harrow said, "the alpha donor is not a private citizen." Eli's stomach dropped. What does that mean? He was enrolled under a sealed contract, high-security anonymity, corporate intermediaries. Eli's pulse picked up. "Doctor, yes. Does he know?" Another pause. This one was worse. "Yes," Dr. Harrow said softly. "He was notified of genetic activation this morning." Eli went cold. "That's not possible," he said. "My records are confidential." "They were," Dr. Harrow replied, "but the contract flagged the pregnancy automatically." The kitchen felt suddenly too small. The air too thick. "You're saying," Eli said, "that a stranger knows I'm pregnant before I do?" "Yes." The door knocked. Not a polite knock. Not a neighborly tap. 3 heavy raps, measured, patient, the kind of knock that didn't expect an answer. Eli's heart slammed into his ribs. "Doctor," he whispered, eyes locked on the door, "I need you to tell me who this alpha is." "I can't," Dr. Harrow said, voice shaking. "But you need to leave, now." The scent hit him before the door opened. Alpha. Not loud, not aggressive. Controlled, cold, expensive. It slid into Eli's senses like a blade, his omega instincts flaring despite the suppressants, every nerve suddenly aware. His knees weakened, just for a second, and he hated it. The lock turned. The door opened. A man stood there in a dark coat, tailored to the kind of body that didn't need to prove anything. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dark-haired, his expression carved into something severe and unreadable. 2 others flanked him, silent, watchful. His gaze landed on Eli, held. Something in the air clicked. The pressure at Eli's neck spiked, sharp enough to make him gasp. The man inhaled, slowly, then his eyes darkened. "Mr. Rosen," he said. His voice was low, calm, and utterly certain. "You're carrying my child." Eli's tablet slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Behind him, the soup burned. The doctor was still on the line, saying his name over and over, distant and useless. Eli straightened, spine stiff, fear giving way to fury. "I don't know who you think you are," he said, voice shaking but loud, "but you are not welcome here." The Alpha studied him for a long moment. Then, quietly, "I don't think you understand the situation." "Oh," Eli snapped, "I understand it perfectly. Your sperm ended up where it shouldn't have." "That's not my problem." A muscle in the man's jaw flexed. "It is," he said, "because nothing that belongs to me is unprotected." Eli's omega instinct screamed at the word belongs. "Get out," Eli said. Now, the Alpha didn't move. Instead, he took a step forward, and the bond, unwanted, uninvited, pulled tight for the first time. Eli did not faint. He considered it, briefly. There was a moment, right after the Alpha took that step forward, right after the invisible pressure snapped tight between them, when his vision dimmed at the edges and his omega instincts screamed, "Yield, yield, yield." But Eli Rosen had spent his entire adult life learning how to say no to instincts. So instead of collapsing, he squared his shoulders and glared. "Take another step," Eli said, voice razor thin, "and I will call the police." The Alpha stopped, not because he was afraid of the police. That much was obvious. Men like this didn't stop because of laws, they stopped because of calculations. His gaze flicked, briefly, to the shattered tablet on the floor, the boiling pot forgotten on the stove, the open window. An assessment, fast and ruthless. Then his eyes returned to Eli's face. "You're not safe," he said. Eli barked a laugh. "You broke into my apartment. I knocked. You brought armed escorts. There's security." "They're staring at my throat." One of the men behind him looked mildly offended. The Alpha exhaled through his nose. This conversation would be easier somewhere else. Not happening. The pressure in the room thickened, not scent exactly, but intent. The Alpha's presence pressed in, heavy and unavoidable, like gravity deciding Eli no longer got a choice. "My name," the Alpha said, "is Dominic Vale." Eli froze. He shouldn't have known that name. He worked compliance, not organized crime. He didn't read the news for fun, but some names leaked through systems anyway. Too big, too dangerous to stay contained. Dominic Vale was a ghost story told in corporate hallways, a syndicate head who didn't appear in photos, an Alpha who had inherited power like it was a birthright. "Oh," Eli said faintly, "you've got to be kidding me." Dominic's eyes sharpened. "You know who I am. I know enough," Eli said. "Which makes this worse." "Yes," Dominic agreed calmly. "It does." Eli's omega glands throbbed again, a deep ache that felt suspiciously like recognition. He hated it. He hated his body for responding, for betraying him. "Get out," Eli said again. "Whatever mistake that clinic made, it doesn't give you access to my life." Dominic tilted his head slightly. "You're carrying my heir. I'm carrying my child." Dominic stepped forward again. This time, Eli's knees buckled, not from fear, from the bond, a sharp electric pull that lit up every nerve ending, dragging something ancient and instinctive to the surface. Eli sucked in a breath, nails digging into his palms. Dominic noticed. Something dark and hungry flickered across his face before he smothered it. "You feel it," Dominic said quietly. Eli swallowed. "That doesn't mean anything. It means everything." "No," Eli snapped. "It means biology is rude." One corner of Dominic's mouth twitched, the closest thing to amusement Eli had seen so far. "Pack a bag," Dominic said. "You're coming with me." The word slammed into the room. "Absolutely not." "This isn't a request. I don't care if it's a prophecy written in blood," Eli said. "You don't get to relocate me like furniture." Dominic's gaze hardened. "There are people who will come for that child. That's your problem. It becomes your problem when they don't care whether you survive the attempt." Eli's breath caught. "Not fear, anger. You think locking me in one of your safe houses makes this better?" Eli demanded. "You think stripping me of autonomy is protection?" Dominic's jaw tightened. I'm keeping you alive. I was alive 5 minutes ago. You were unguarded. And now, Eli said, stepping closer despite himself, I'm imprisoned. Something shifted. Dominic looked down at him, really looked. Not like a possession, like a problem he hadn't anticipated. You can call it whatever you like, Dominic said. But you are not staying here. Eli laughed again, bitter. Do you know what I do for a living? Dominic waited. I audit systems, Eli said. I find weaknesses. And right now, yours is assuming you get to decide. The silence stretched. Behind Dominic, one of the guards shifted uneasily. Dominic exhaled, slowly, controlled. 3 options, he said. You come willingly, you come under protest, or I sedate you. Eli stared at him. You're joking. I don't joke. Eli's hands shook. Not because he was scared, because every instinct in him was warring. His Omega side wanted safety, wanted the Alpha's shadow, wanted to stop fighting. His human side wanted to scream. Give me 5 minutes, Eli said. I'll pack. Dominic studied him. Then nodded once. 5. Dominic turned away, speaking quietly into an earpiece. Orders, logistics, a world moving around Eli without his consent. Eli moved fast. He grabbed clothes, documents, medication, his suppressants, his backup suppressants. He hesitated, then shoved his ultrasound appointment folder into the bag too. When he emerged, Dominic was waiting. Do I get my phone? Eli asked. Yes. Do I get to leave? No. Eli met his gaze. Then this isn't protection. It's custody. Dominic didn't deny it. They moved through the hallway, neighbors' doors closed and silent. The elevator ride was unbearable. Too close, Dominic's scent pressing in, rich and dark and infuriatingly calming. Outside, a black car waited. As Eli got in, his stomach rolled. Not nausea, but something deeper, something that whispered this changes everything. Dominic slid in beside him. As the car pulled away, Eli stared out the window and said quietly, You don't own me. Dominic looked at him for a long time. No, he said, but the world will try to take what's inside you. His gaze dropped, just for a second, to Eli's abdomen. And I don't lose. Eli clenched his fists. Neither do I, he thought. The safe house was not what Eli expected. That in itself was unsettling. He'd been bracing for concrete walls, barred windows, something aggressively militarized, an underground bunker with no sunlight and too many cameras, the kind of place that screamed you are not leaving. Instead, the car pulled into a quiet, tree-lined street where the houses all looked politely expensive and painfully normal. This is a joke, Eli muttered, peering out the window. Did you kidnap me to suburbia? Dominic didn't look amused. This property doesn't exist on public records, Eli snorted. Of course it doesn't. They entered through a garage that swallowed the car whole, doors closing with a soft hydraulic hiss. Inside, the house opened up into something warm and deceptively inviting. Wood floors, neutral tones, large windows overlooking a private garden. Eli stopped dead. This place smells wrong, he said. Dominic glanced at him. Wrong how? Clean, Eli replied, but not sterile. Like, someone lives here. I do, Dominic said. Eli turned slowly. You live here. Yes, you brought me to your house. Dominic shrugged out of his coat, movements precise. It's the most secure location available on short notice. And you thought, Eli said incredulously, that bringing an unbonded Omega you just kidnapped into your personal territory was a good idea? Dominic paused. That pause told Eli everything. Oh, Eli said. You didn't think about that at all. Dominic's jaw flexed. You're not unbonded. Eli's neck prickled. We are not bonded, Eli snapped. We are victims of clerical incompetence. Dominic studied him, eyes dark, calculating. The bond has initiated. That doesn't mean I consented. Silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Then Dominic nodded once, noted. Eli didn't like how easily he accepted that. A woman appeared from the hallway, sharp-eyed and calm, holding a tablet. Security sweep complete, she said. Her gaze flicked to Eli, curious, assessing. This him? Dominic inclined his head. Eli Rosen. This is Mara. Hi, Eli said flatly. I'm the wrong Omega. Mara blinked, then smiled. Oh, she said. I like him. Dominic frowned. Focus. Mara smirked and gestured down the hall. Primary bedroom is secure, medical room stocked. No surveillance blind spots, medical room? Eli echoed. For you, Dominic said. Eli folded his arms. I don't need a hospital wing. You're pregnant, Dominic replied. You need monitoring. I need boundaries. Dominic hesitated. Just a fraction. Those are being negotiated, he said. Eli laughed. You are terrible at this. At the end of the hall was a bedroom, not a room. A suite. Large bed, soft lighting, windows overlooking the garden. Everything carefully neutral, like someone had designed it to offend no one and comfort everyone. Eli stepped inside and froze. His omega instincts surged like a wave. The room felt right, too right. The scent, Dominic's, faint but unmistakable, lingered in the air, wrapped around the space like a territorial marker. Eli's skin prickled. His chest tightened. Oh no, Eli whispered. Dominic watched him closely. What? This, Eli said, backing up a step, is a problem. The pull intensified. His body wanted to move forward, to claim space, to rearrange. To nest. I cannot stay in here, Eli said quickly. Put me anywhere else. Closet, couch, basement. I don't care. This is the safest room, Dominic said. It's your room. Dominic didn't deny it. Eli looked at the bed. The soft blankets. The pillows. His hands twitched. His omega instincts were already cataloging textures. Get me another room, Eli demanded. Now, Dominic considered, then shook his head. No. Eli stared at him. Excuse me? You're reacting because the bond recognizes the territory, Dominic said evenly. Moving you elsewhere will only delay it. I don't want to delay it, Eli snapped. I want to stop it. You can't. Watch me. Eli turned and marched straight back out into the hall. 5 minutes later, Dominic found him in the living room, aggressively dragging throw pillows into a pile on the floor. What are you doing? Dominic asked. Claiming neutral ground, Eli said, shoving a blanket into the pile. If my instincts are going to revolt, they're doing it on my terms. Dominic stared. You can't sleep on the floor. Tell that to my nervous system. Dominic exhaled slowly, rubbing the bridge of his nose. You're being unreasonable. Eli looked up at him. You abducted me and put me in your bed. Yes. And I'm unreasonable. Dominic opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. You can have the bedroom, he said stiffly. I'll take the couch. Eli blinked. You'll what? I'll sleep elsewhere. Eli studied him suspiciously. You don't have to martyr yourself. I'm not, Dominic said. This is strategic. Oh, Eli said dryly. Of course. They ate dinner in tense silence. Takeout someone else had ordered, because Dominic Vale apparently did not cook. Eli ate carefully, aware of every sensation in his body, the strange undercurrent humming beneath his skin. He hated that part of him felt safe. Later, as Eli tried to sleep on the couch, and failed, the bond stirred again, low, insistent. His glands ached. His thoughts drifted unwillingly toward the alpha in the next room, toward warmth, toward protection, toward something terrifyingly close to trust. Eli sat up, heart racing. No, he whispered into the dark. We are not doing this. Down the hall, Dominic lay awake too, staring at the ceiling, every instinct screaming at him to pull the omega closer. For the first time in years, Dominic Vale did not trust himself, and somewhere between them, something ancient and patient waited. Eli woke up with his face buried in fabric that was not his. That was the first problem. The second problem was that the fabric smelled like Dominic. Not overpowering, nothing crude or aggressive, but warm, clean, and unmistakably alpha, like cedar and smoke and something darker beneath it. The scent slid straight under Eli's suppressants and curled around his spine. He inhaled before he could stop himself. Oh no, Eli croaked. His omega instincts purred. Eli shot upright on the couch, heart pounding, tangled in 3 blankets he did not remember collecting. The living room looked wrong. Cushions were missing from the sofa. A throw rug had been dragged halfway across the floor. Pillows were stacked in a careful semicircle around the coffee table, a structure. He stared at it. Did I do that? His glands throbbed painfully in response, as if offended by the question. Eli pressed his palms to his face. You have got to be kidding me. The thing was, he remembered going to bed. Remembered tossing and turning, fighting the bond's pull like it was gravity. remembered thinking very clearly that he would not, under any circumstances, start nesting in a Mafia lord's house like a hormonally compromised raccoon. And yet, here he was, surrounded by soft things that felt right. A sound came from the kitchen. Eli froze. Footsteps, controlled, familiar. Dominic appeared in the doorway, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly disheveled in a way that made something unpleasantly warm bloom in Eli's chest. He stopped dead when he took in the scene. The blankets, the pillows, the rug, the very obvious nest. Silence. Eli lifted a finger. "I can explain." Dominic's eyes dragged slowly over the living room, pupils dilating despite himself. The scent in the air had changed, richer now, layered with omega warmth and something vulnerable. "You nested," Dominic said. "I did not mean to. You dragged half the room into a defensive formation. It was subconscious." "You're on neutral territory." Eli gestured weakly at the couch. "Apparently not neutral enough." Dominic swallowed, his hands curled into fists at his sides. Every alpha instinct in him screamed to approach, to adjust, to fortify, to make it better. He did none of that. "That's significant," Dominic said carefully. Eli glared at him. "Don't say it like that. Your body is seeking security. My body is a traitor." Dominic took a step forward, then stopped himself, visibly restraining the movement. The air between them felt charged, tight. "You should be in the bedroom," Dominic said. Eli laughed hysterically. "Absolutely not. You're uncomfortable. I will be uncomfortable anywhere you've scented." Dominic hesitated, then said something that surprised both of them. "Then we remove the scent." Eli blinked. "You can do that?" "Yes." "How?" Dominic paused. "I stopped being here." The words hit harder than Eli expected. "Oh," Eli said too quickly. "That's not necessary." "It is," Dominic replied. "You're escalating. Don't make this about me being broken." "I didn't." "You implied it." Dominic stepped closer despite himself, voice low. "I implied that your body is responding to stress, fear, and an unplanned bond initiation." Eli hugged a pillow to his chest without realizing it. "You make it sound very clinical." "I'm trying not to make it territorial." That earned a snort. Too late. Dominic looked at the nest again, then at Eli. Really looked. Dark circles under his eyes, the tight way he held himself. The defiance layered over fear. "You didn't consent to this," Dominic said quietly. Eli's throat tightened. He hadn't expected acknowledgement. "No," he said, "I didn't." Dominic nodded once, as if confirming something to himself. "Then we slow it down." "How?" Eli asked. "My instincts don't listen to reason." "Mine do," Dominic said. He turned toward the hallway. "I'll relocate." Eli's heart skipped. "You don't have to leave the house." "I do," Dominic replied. "For now." "You're going to just go?" "Yes." Eli stared at him, thrown. "You trust me alone here?" Dominic's mouth curved slightly. "I trust that you don't want to be owned?" Eli swallowed. "Don't disappear," Eli said, then scowled. "I mean, don't make decisions about me without telling me." Dominic inclined his head. Agreed. He paused at the door. "For what it's worth, the nest is well constructed." Eli groaned and threw a pillow at him. Dominic caught it easily, and for just a second, just one, he smiled. After Dominic left, the house felt quieter, emptier. The absence was noticeable in a way Eli deeply resented. He rearranged the nest without thinking, tightened the circle, adjusted the pillows. When he finally lay down, his body relaxed despite his anger. Hours later, his phone buzzed. "Dominic, security check. Are you stable?" Eli stared at the screen. "Eli, define stable." A pause. "Dominic, not nesting further." Eli looked around. Okay, maybe one more blanket had joined. "Eli, no comment." Another pause. "Dominic, we'll get you better suppressants tomorrow." Eli typed, erased, typed again. "Eli, this doesn't mean anything." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. "Dominic, I know." Eli set the phone down, heart thudding. He didn't know if that was a lie. But somewhere deep in his chest, the bond hummed, quiet, watchful, patient, and for the first time since the mistake, Eli slept without nightmares. Dominic Vale did not pace. Pacing implied uncertainty. Instead, he stood at the window of the secondary safe house apartment, bare, functional, unused for years, and watch the city like it might confess something if he stared long enough. It was 3 a.m. He could still smell Eli. That was the problem. Alpha instincts were simple, brutal things. Protect, claim, eliminate threats. Dominic had mastered them years ago, folded them neatly into discipline and strategy. He ruled because he was controlled, because he never acted on impulse, and yet his chest felt tight, restless, wrong. The bond tugged, soft but insistent, like a hand curled around his ribs. Eli is safe, he reminded himself. He had triple-checked security feeds, rotated guards, locked down access routes. The house was a fortress pretending to be a home, and still his instincts snarled. Dominic's phone vibrated. "Mara," he answered without looking. "Report, you left," she said. Not a question. Yes. A pause. "You shouldn't have. I had to." He nested. Dominic closed his eyes. "Yes, that escalates things, I know." Mara sighed. "The council knows." That snapped his attention sharp. "How?" "Medical channels. The clinic flagged irregularities. Too many eyes." Dominic's jaw tightened. "Contain it. I am," Mara said. "But they're asking questions. They don't get answers. They're worried," she continued carefully. "Unplanned errors make people nervous." "They should be," Dominic said flatly. Silence stretched. "Is he cooperative?" Mara asked. Dominic thought of Eli's glare, his defiance, the way he'd clutched that pillow like armor. "He's not weak," Dominic said. "I didn't ask that." "No," Dominic admitted. "He's not cooperative," Mara hummed thoughtfully. "That may be good." Dominic frowned. "Explain." "Omegas who submit too fast break," she said. "This one won't." Dominic said nothing. "Dominic," Mara added, voice sharpening, "you need to decide what this is." "It's a mistake," he said immediately. Mara didn't laugh. That worried him more than if she had. "Biology doesn't make mistakes," she said. "Systems do." After the call ended, Dominic remained still. He did not like questions without answers. Across the city, Eli woke abruptly, heart racing. He sat up in the nest, breath shallow, hand pressed to his chest. "What was that?" he whispered. The bond pulsed once, sharp, anxious, protective. Not his anxiety. Dominic's. Eli scowled. "Don't you dare!" He grabbed his phone. "Eli, if you're spiraling, stop it. I can feel it." The response came almost immediately. "Dominic, I'm not spiraling." Eli snorted. "Eli, your definition of not spiraling is terrifying." A pause. "Dominic, are you in pain?" Eli glanced down at himself. No cramps, no dizziness, just that strange echo in his chest. "Eli, no. Are you?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Dominic, no." That was a lie. Eli could feel it, tight, restrained tension, like a cord pulled too far. Eli exhaled slowly. "Eli, you left because of the nest." "Dominic, yes." "Eli, you didn't have to run." "Dominic, I wasn't running." Eli stared at the screen. "Eli, you were..." 3 dots appeared, stopped, appeared again. "Dominic, I didn't want to scare you." Eli's chest tightened. That wasn't what he'd expected. "Eli, you could try talking instead of vanishing." "Dominic, I don't talk when my instincts are compromised." Eli snorted softly. "Figures." He hesitated, then typed, "Eli, they're compromised now." A minute passed, 2, then, "Dominic." "Yes." Eli lay back, staring at the ceiling. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "I don't even like you." The bond responded with a warm, amused hum. "Oh, shut up," Eli told his own body. By morning, Dominic returned. Eli heard him before he saw him, footsteps measured, controlled, but faster than usual. When Dominic entered the living room, he stopped short. The nest was bigger. Eli froze mid-adjustment, clutching a pillow. They stared at each other. "It spread," Eli said weakly. Dominic swallowed hard. The scent in the room was unmistakable now. Omega warmth layered with stress and vulnerability. "You shouldn't be alone like this," Dominic said. "I wasn't alone," Eli replied. "I had 50 guards and a panic attack." Dominic moved before he could stop himself. 1 step closer. Eli's breath hitched. "Don't," Eli warned. Dominic stopped, muscles rigid. "I won't touch you," he said hoarsely. "But you're burning through suppressants too fast, I know. You need a doctor. I don't want your doctors." Dominic nodded. "Then we find one you trust." Eli stared at him, suspicious. "You'd let me choose?" "Yes, even if they hate you." Dominic's mouth twitched. especially then. Eli's shoulders sagged slightly, tension bleeding out. "This is still my body," Eli said. "Yes," Dominic replied. "It is." The bond eased, just a fraction. Outside, somewhere deep in the syndicate, people were already planning how to take control of the situation. They would fail. Because Dominic Vale was learning something dangerous, and Eli Rosen was no longer just a variable. The doctor Eli chose hated Dominic on sight. Dr. Anika Shah did not bother hiding it. She took one look at Dominic, tailored suit, controlled posture, guard stationed discreetly outside the private clinic room, and said, "You can wait outside." Dominic didn't move. "I'm the patient," Eli said from the exam chair, arms crossed, "and I want him here." Dr. Shah's eyebrows shot up. She turned her sharp gaze on Eli. "You sure?" "No," Eli said honestly, "but I want him here anyway." Dominic inclined his head slightly, something like respect flickering in his eyes. Dr. Shah sighed. "Fine. But if he interrupts me, I will sedate him." Eli smiled faintly. "You're already my favorite." The exam room smelled aggressively sterile, enough to blunt Dominic's scent, which helped. Eli's nerves buzzed under his skin as Dr. Shah reviewed his file on a tablet, frowning deeper with every swipe. "This IVF mix-up," she said finally, "is a legal nightmare." "You don't say." "But medically," she continued, "it's more complicated than they told you." Eli's stomach dropped. "Complicated how?" She glanced up. "How much do you know about Omegaverse bonding biology?" "Enough to avoid it," Dr. Shah huffed. "Fair. Unfortunately, this isn't a standard pregnancy." Dominic stiffened. "The alpha's genetics," Dr. Shah said, "are dominant. Aggressively so." Eli snorted despite himself. "That tracks." "I'm serious," she said. "Your body is responding as if this were a bonded conception. Hormones, scent sensitivity, nesting." Eli groaned. "Great." "It's not great," she said sharply. "Because without a stabilized bond, or a carefully managed alternative, you're at higher risk for burnout, severe stress reactions, potential collapse." Eli went still. "Collapse. Yes." Dominic spoke for the first time. "Define that." Dr. Shah looked at him coolly. "Omega physiological shutdown. It's rare. But unbonded pregnancies with strong alpha imprinting increase the risk." Eli's throat tightened. "So what? My options are bond or break." "No," Dr. Shah said. "Your options are choice or chaos." She turned the tablet so Eli could see. "Charts, projections, ugly red lines. We can manage this medically," she said. "Suppressants adjusted. Environmental controls. Reduced alpha exposure." Dominic frowned. "Reduced? Yes," she said pointedly. "That means him not looming." Eli glanced at Dominic. "You do loom. I stand. You brood." Dr. Shah cleared her throat. "Alternatively, there's partial bonding." Both men froze. "Define partial," Eli said warily. "No claim," she explained. "No legal or social binding. Just enough neurological feedback to stabilize hormone spikes. Think of it as a handshake, not a contract." Eli swallowed. "And it requires consent," she said firmly. "From both parties." The room went very quiet. Dominic's instincts roared. Take it, secure it, protect, but he didn't move. Eli stared at his hands. His body felt suddenly fragile. "Finite. I don't want to be owned," Eli said quietly. Dominic's voice was low. "You wouldn't be..." "You say that," Eli snapped, looking up. "But your entire life is about ownership." Dominic held his gaze. "Not you," Eli scoffed. "You barely know me." "I know you refuse to yield," Dominic said. "I know you argue when you're afraid. I know you nested in a living room because you wouldn't take my bed." Eli flushed. "That was hormonal sabotage and choice," Dominic said. "You choose, even when it hurts." Dr. Shah watched them with narrowed eyes. "I'm going to be very clear," she said. "If you do nothing, this situation will escalate on its own. Biology doesn't wait for emotional readiness." Eli leaned back, exhausted. "Of course it doesn't." A phone buzzed. Dominic glanced at it, then stiffened. "What?" Eli demanded. "Someone breached our outer surveillance," Dominic said calmly. "Not here, but close." Eli's blood ran cold. "Already? Yes," Dr. Shah swore. "You brought war to my clinic?" "They followed me," Dominic said. "Not him." "That's not comforting." Dominic turned to Eli. "We need to leave." Eli hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, They moved fast. In the car, Eli's hands shook despite himself. Dominic noticed immediately. "You're safe," Dominic said. "Don't," Eli snapped. "Don't do the alpha reassurance thing." Dominic fell silent. A block later, the car slowed abruptly. Eli frowned. "Why are we—" The explosion rocked the street, not close enough to hit them, but close enough to shatter windows and send shockwaves through Eli's body. Eli screamed, clutching his stomach. Dominic roared. The bond snapped tight, white-hot and instinctive. Dominic pulled Eli into his arms before either of them could think, shielding him, body curved protectively, scent flaring hard and fierce. Eli's world narrowed to heat and safety, and the thunder of Dominic's heart. "Breathe," Dominic growled softly into his hair. "I've got you." Eli clutched Dominic's coat, terrified, and furious at himself for how right it felt. Sirens wailed in the distance. When it was over, Eli pulled back sharply. "That," he said shakily, "does not mean I agreed to anything." Dominic's eyes burned. "I know. But the bond didn't recede. It settled, waiting, and for the first time Eli realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about whether he wanted Dominic. It was about whether he could survive without him. The car smelled like smoke, adrenaline, and alpha. Eli noticed this very clearly, which was unfortunate because he was trying not to notice anything at all. His hands were still shaking, not violently, just enough to make it hard to pretend he was fine. Dominic sat beside him, rigid, one arm still braced protectively behind Eli's shoulders even though the danger had passed. Eli hated how natural it felt. "Take your arm off me," Eli said. Dominic hesitated. "That wasn't a suggestion," Eli added. Dominic withdrew immediately, folding his hands together like he was containing something volatile. The silence that followed was heavy, buzzing with things neither of them wanted to say. "You screamed," Dominic said quietly. Eli stared out the window. "Explosions do that. You shielded your stomach." Eli's jaw tightened. "So did you—" Dominic didn't respond. They returned to the safe house under lockdown. Extra guards, sweeps, Mara barking orders into comms with lethal calm. The house that had felt almost domestic yesterday now felt like what it truly was. The house that had felt almost domestic yesterday now felt like what it truly was. The house that had felt almost domestic yesterday now felt like what it truly was. The house that had felt almost domestic yesterday now felt like what it truly was. The house that had felt almost domestic yesterday now felt like what it truly was. The house that had felt almost domestic yesterday now felt like what it truly was. The house that had felt almost domestic yesterday now felt like what it truly was. The house that had felt almost domestic yesterday now felt like what it truly was. The house that had felt almost domestic yesterday now felt like what it truly was. The house that had felt almost domestic yesterday now felt like what it truly was. The house that had felt almost domestic yesterday now felt like what it truly was. The house that had felt almost domestic yesterday now. Dominic turned to him, voice low and dangerous. "I do." Eli flinched, not at the tone, but at the certainty. Mara watched them for a moment, then said, "I'll give you privacy," and left. The house went quiet. Eli sank onto the couch, rubbing his face. "I didn't sign up for this. I didn't want a bond, or a partner, or a war. I know. I wanted control," Eli said. "I wanted one thing in my life that was just mine." Dominic sat across from him, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. He looked, unsettlingly, human. "They'll keep escalating," Dominic said, "because right now you're vulnerable." Eli's voice came out small. "So what, I just accept it?" "No," Dominic said immediately. "You decide." Eli let out a shaky breath. "Dr. Shaw said if we do nothing, biology will—" "Yes, and if we do the partial bond, it stabilizes you," Dominic said. "Buys time. Reduces the stress response." "And you?" Eli asked quietly. "What does it do to you?" Dominic hesitated. Eli's eyes narrowed. "Don't lie. It anchors me," Dominic admitted. "Enough to stop my instincts from overriding my judgment." "That sounds like a bigger concession than you're pretending." Dominic met his gaze. "It is—" Eli swallowed. The bond stirred between them, not demanding. Waiting. "I don't want to wake up one day and realize I gave something away I can't get back," Eli said. Dominic nodded slowly. "Then don't—" "That's not helpful. I mean it," Dominic said. If you say no, we adapt. And if I say yes, Eli said, voice tight, you don't take more. Dominic's answer was immediate. I won't. Eli laughed softly. You expect me to trust that? No, Dominic said. I expect you to watch me keep my word. Silence settled again. Eli looked down at his hands. At the slight tremor he couldn't quite control. I was scared, he admitted, when the explosion happened, not just for the baby. For me, Dominic's voice softened. That's not weakness. Don't romanticize it. I'm not, Dominic said. I'm acknowledging it. Eli closed his eyes. Okay, he said. Dominic stilled. Okay, what? We do the partial bond, Eli said, opening his eyes. On my terms. Dominic didn't move, didn't breathe. Conditions, Eli continued. No claim, no marking, no public anything. And if I say stop, we stop, Dominic said immediately. And, Eli added, you don't get to decide things for me, because you think you know better. Dominic inclined his head. Agreed. Eli exhaled, long and shaky. God, I hate this. Dominic's mouth curved faintly. You're allowed to. They didn't touch. Not yet. But the bond hummed. Low, steady. No longer panicked. For the first time since the mistake, Eli felt something dangerously close to grounded. Outside, the people who wanted him cornered were already planning their next move. They had no idea what Eli Rosen had just agreed to, and Dominic Vale had never been more careful or more afraid of anything in his life. They didn't rush it. That, Eli realized later, was what made it feel different. Dr. Shaw cleared out an entire evening, citing medical necessity, and if either of you pulls some alpha bullshit, I will revoke my license out of spite. She prepared the room herself. Soft lighting, muted scents, grounding equipment calibrated to omega comfort, not alpha dominance. Dominic noticed everything. Eli noticed that Dominic noticed that mattered. You can stop this at any point, Dr. Shaw said for the third time, adjusting the monitor. Even halfway through. Especially halfway through. I heard you, Eli said. I know, she replied gently. I'm saying it for him. Dominic nodded once. Understood. They stood facing each other, 6 feet apart, like this was a negotiation instead of something terrifyingly personal. Eli broke the silence. You look like you're about to be executed. Dominic's mouth twitched. I've been calmer under fire. That's not reassuring. It's honest. Eli took a breath. His heart was loud in his ears. This isn't, he started, then stopped. Tried again. This doesn't make us anything. I know, Dominic said immediately. It doesn't mean I forgive the clinic, or you, or fate. I wouldn't ask you to. And you don't get to read into this. I won't. Eli studied his face, searching for cracks. He found restraint instead, tight, deliberate, almost reverent. That scared him more than confidence would have. Okay, Eli said softly. Then, okay. Dr. Shaw stepped back. Sit. Both of you. They sat on opposite sides of a low couch, knees angled toward each other but not touching. The distance felt intentional, respectful. This will establish a feedback loop, Dr. Shaw explained. Emotional regulation, stress dampening, hormonal stabilization. No dominance override, no claim reflex. She looked pointedly at Dominic. If you feel the urge to assert, stop. I will, Dominic said. Eli snorted. You say that like it's a button. It is, Dominic replied quietly. I just don't usually let anyone else near it. Eli swallowed. Dr. Shaw nodded. Touch is optional. Eye contact helps. Scent exchange will happen regardless. Eli tensed. Scent exchange, minimal, she assured him. You're already reacting to each other. This just organizes it. Dominic glanced at Eli. Do you want me to touch you? The way he asked, careful, neutral, giving Eli room, made Eli's chest ache. Yes, Eli said after a moment, but hands. Just hands. Dominic extended his hands slowly, palms up, offering rather than reaching. Eli placed his hands in them. The bond responded instantly. Not violently, not explosively, but like a breath finally let out. Warmth spread through Eli's chest, easing the constant tightness he'd been pretending wasn't there. Oh, he whispered. Dominic's breath hitched. His hands were warm, steady. He didn't tighten his grip, didn't pull Eli closer, just held. Eli felt seen in a way that made his eyes sting. You're shaking, Eli murmured. So are you, Dominic replied. Dr. Shaw watched the monitors. Good. That's synchronizing. Eli's senses sharpened, not overwhelmed, just clear. He could feel Dominic's presence without it pressing in, feel concern without possession, strength without demand. This feels, Eli frowned, searching for the word, safer. Dominic's voice was rough. It feels quieter. The bond settled, not locking, not sealing, just aligning, like two pieces agreeing to share space without merging. Eli's omega instincts relaxed for the first time in days. His glands stopped aching. His breathing evened out. He sagged forward slightly without realizing it. Dominic caught him instantly, still gentle, still controlled, but this time Eli didn't pull away. Hey, Dominic said softly, I've got you, just balance. Eli laughed weakly. Don't get poetic. I'm not, Dominic said. I'm being literal. Eli rested his forehead against Dominic's shoulder. It felt right, not inevitable, not destined, chosen. After a while, Doctor, Shaw quietly excused herself. I'll be nearby. Call if anything spikes. Neither of them noticed when she left. They stayed like that, hands clasped, breath sinking, the world narrowed to something manageable. I'm still scared, Eli admitted. Dominic nodded. So am I. That's new for you, yes. Eli smiled faintly. Good. Dominic huffed a soft, surprised laugh. Minutes passed. Maybe longer. When Eli finally pulled back, his eyes were clearer, steadier. Okay, he said. That's enough for today. Dominic released him immediately. No arguing, Eli added. I wouldn't. They stood in awkward silence, suddenly unsure what came next. This doesn't mean you get to hover, Eli said. Dominic nodded. I'll hover from a respectful distance. Eli rolled his eyes. You're learning. Dominic hesitated, then said quietly, Thank you for trusting me with this. Eli paused. I didn't trust you, he said honestly. I trusted myself. Dominic smiled. And for the first time, it wasn't restrained. It was soft. They didn't rush it. That was the rule, spoken and unspoken. No rushing, no taking, no letting instinct decide faster than intention. Dr. Shaw dimmed the lights herself, adjusted the environmental controls to omega neutral, and pointedly removed anything that looked ceremonial. This is medical, she said firmly. Not a claiming. Not a ritual. If either of you forget that, I will end it. Dominic inclined his head. Understood. Eli crossed his arms. You say that like you're not terrifying when you're calm. I'm always terrifying, Dominic replied mildly. Eli snorted despite himself. They stood facing each other, the space between them deliberate, not empty, charged. Eli could feel Dominic's presence now like a steady warmth instead of a crushing weight. The partial bond hovered at the edge of awareness, waiting for permission. This doesn't mean anything permanent, Eli said because he needed to say it out loud. I know, Dominic replied immediately. It doesn't make us partners. Or mates? Or... I won't assume, Dominic said. Eli searched his face. He saw tension there, yes, but also restraint so carefully held it bordered on reverence. That scared him more than hunger ever could. Okay, Eli whispered. Okay. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, knees angled inward but not touching. Dr. Shaw activated the monitors and then stepped back. Eye contact helps, she said. Touch is optional. You stop at the first sign of distress. Eli took a breath. His heart was loud. Hands, he said. Just hands. Dominic extended his hands slowly, palms up, waiting. Eli placed his hands in them. The reaction was immediate. Not explosive, not overwhelming, just relief. The constant background tension in Eli's body eased like a clenched muscle finally letting go. His omega instincts didn't surge. They settled. The ache at his glands softened into warmth. His breathing evened out without effort. Oh, Eli breathed. Dominic's grip trembled, but did not tighten. His voice was low. Are you all right? Yes, Eli said, surprised by how true it felt. I feel... steadier. Good, Dr. Shaw murmured, watching the monitors. That's stabilization. Dominic's gaze stayed on Eli's face, searching. Not claiming, not asserting. Just checking. You're shaking, Eli said quietly. So are you, Dominic replied. They smiled at the same time, small, uncertain. The bond aligned gently, like two magnets easing into place without snapping together. No ownership, no pressure, just presence. Eli's body leaned forward before his mind caught up. Dominic froze. "Is this okay?" Dominic asked softly, barely moving. "If not, yes," Eli said. "Just slow." Dominic nodded, forehead resting lightly against Eli's temple. The contact sent a shiver through both of them, not sharp, not desperate. Warm. Eli closed his eyes. This close, Dominic smelled less like alpha and more like person. Clean soap, something woodsy, something steady. "This is dangerous," Eli murmured. "Yes," Dominic agreed. "But you're not taking," Eli said. "No," Dominic said. "I'm waiting." Eli pulled back just enough to look at him. Dominic's eyes were dark, not hungry, focused, open in a way that made Eli's chest ache. "You won't push," Eli said. "Not a question, I won't," Dominic replied. Something inside Eli unclenched. He leaned in. The kiss was soft, careful, more a question than an answer. Eli felt Dominic inhale sharply, but he didn't deepen it, didn't pull Eli closer. He let Eli set the pace, lips warm and steady, meeting without claiming. Eli's heart thudded painfully against his ribs. The bond hummed. Quiet approval, not demand. When Eli pulled back, their foreheads stayed pressed together. "That," Eli said faintly, "was not part of the medical plan." Dominic's voice was rough. "Do you regret it?" Eli searched himself honestly. "No," he said. "But don't get ideas." Dominic huffed a breath that might have been a laugh. "Understood." Dr. Shaw cleared her throat pointedly. "Vitals are excellent. Emotionally regulated. You can stop whenever you want." Eli nodded. "I think that's enough for today." Dominic released his hands instantly. No hesitation, no protest. That mattered more than the kiss. They stood in awkward silence afterward. The air between them changed, charged but gentle. "This doesn't mean I'm agreeing to more," Eli said. "I know," Dominic replied. "And it doesn't mean you get to decide where this goes. I won't." Eli studied him, then nodded once. "Good." As they left the clinic, side by side but not touching, Eli felt something new beneath the fear and uncertainty. Not destiny, not inevitability, choice. And for the first time since the mistake, the future didn't feel like a trap. It felt possible. The problem with a careful kiss was that it didn't end when the lips parted. Eli discovered this at 3 a.m, wide awake in the safe house bed. His bed now, Dominic had moved permanently to the guest room, staring at the ceiling while his heart refused to calm down. His body felt wrong, not bad, not overwhelmed, just aware. Every sensation seemed sharper, like the world had been turned up a notch. The sheets felt too soft, the air too still. His omega instincts, usually loud and demanding, were quiet, but alert. Watchful, waiting. Eli groaned and rolled onto his side. "This is stupid," he muttered. The bond hummed faintly in response. Not insistent, not needy, present. Images drifted through his mind uninvited. Dominic's hands, steady and warm. The way he'd frozen when Eli leaned in. The look in his eyes afterward, like he'd been handed something fragile and didn't trust himself not to break it. Eli pressed a pillow over his face. "This does not mean anything," he told the pillow. The pillow, traitorously, smelled faintly like Dominic. Across the house, Dominic was also awake. He lay on his back, staring at the dark, every muscle rigid with restraint. The kiss replayed behind his eyes, not the contact, but the permission. The way Eli had chosen it, the way he'd pulled back on his own terms. Dominic exhaled slowly. He had been kissed before, plenty of times, heat-driven, instinctive, transactional. This had been none of those things. The bond pulsed softly between them, carrying more than sensation, emotion blurred at the edges. Dominic felt Eli's restlessness like an echo in his own chest, not fear, not panic, thoughtfulness. Dominic turned onto his side, resisting the instinct to go to him. "You don't take," he reminded himself. "You wait." They ran into each other in the kitchen at exactly the same moment the next morning. Eli stopped short, coffee halfway to his mouth. Dominic froze, hand on the counter. They stared. "Hi," Eli said finally. "Good morning," Dominic replied, voice carefully neutral. Eli took a sip of coffee, immediately grimaced. "This is terrible." "You brewed it." "Still terrible," Dominic hesitated. then reached past him for the kettle. The proximity sent a warm shiver through Eli that he absolutely refused to acknowledge. Dominic noticed anyway. "You didn't sleep," he said quietly. Eli stiffened. "I slept. Lightly," Dominic corrected. Eli glared at him. "Are you spying on me now?" "No," Dominic said. "I can feel it." "Oh," Eli muttered. "Right, the bond. Fantastic." Dominic stepped back, giving him space. "I can distance if you want." Eli hesitated. The honest answer was no. "I just need time," Eli said. "To recalibrate." Dominic nodded. "Take all of it." They stood in awkward silence, the air thick with things neither of them wanted to name. Eli broke it. "You didn't push." Dominic looked at him. "You didn't pull away." Eli flushed. "That's not the same thing." "No," Dominic agreed. "It's not. That should have ended the conversation." "It didn't." "About the kiss," Eli said, staring into his mug. "That wasn't—" "I know," Dominic said immediately. "It wasn't a promise." Eli looked up, surprised. "You do?" "Yes. And you're not reading into it?" Dominic's mouth curved faintly. "I'm not allowed to." Eli huffed a quiet laugh. "You're infuriating. I've been told—" The bond hummed, gentle, amused. Later that day, Eli found Dominic in the study, sleeves rolled up, reviewing security reports. He hovered in the doorway without realizing it. Dominic sensed him instantly. "What do you need?" Eli opened his mouth, closed it. "Nothing," he said. He stopped. Dominic waited. "Patient." Eli exhaled. "The bond feels different today." "How?" Dominic asked. "Less loud," Eli said. "More aware. Like it's listening instead of shouting." Dominic considered that. "That's how it's supposed to feel." Eli's chest tightened. "You make it sound normal. For me," Dominic said softly. "This is new." Eli met his gaze. Something fragile stretched between them. Not tension, not fear, possibility. Eli swallowed. "If this gets to be too much—" "I'll stop," Dominic said. "No," Eli corrected. "You'll tell me." Dominic nodded. "I will." That night, Eli dreamed. Not of danger, not of fire. He dreamed of warmth, of a steady presence behind him, not holding, just there. Close enough to feel, far enough to breathe. When he woke, his hand was pressed to his chest right over the bond. He didn't pull it away. And somewhere down the hall, Dominic woke at the same moment. Heart steady, instincts calm, knowing without knowing why that Eli was still safe. Neither of them said anything the next morning. They didn't need to. Eli was halfway through folding laundry when the bond snapped tight. Not painful, sharp, alerting. He froze, fingers tangled in fabric. "Dominic," he called instinctively. Dominic was at his side in seconds, all controlled movement and readiness. "What? Someone's here," Eli said. "Not inside. Close." Dominic's jaw tightened. "Stay here." Eli followed him anyway. The safe house sensors hadn't triggered alarms, which meant one of two things: either the person was authorized, or they were good. Dominic checked the exterior camera feeds, then went still. "You know him," Dominic said slowly. Eli stepped beside him and looked. The man on the screen leaned casually against the gate, hands in his pockets, smile lazy and familiar in a way that made Eli's stomach drop. "Oh," Eli breathed. "Who is he?" Dominic asked. Eli swallowed. "That's Jonah." Dominic waited. "My ex," Eli added. "From before everything went wrong." The gate buzzer chimed. Dominic didn't move to open it. "Define everything." Eli's voice went flat. "Before I learned how disposable omegas are, that was answer enough." Dominic studied the screen. Jonah was attractive in an easy, polished way. Designer coat, perfectly styled hair, posture loose with confidence. The kind of alpha who'd never had to fight for space. "Why would he come here?" Dominic asked. Eli's laugh was humorless. "Jonah always comes back when he wants something." The buzzer chimed again. Eli sighed. "If you don't let him in, he'll make a scene. He always does." Dominic's eyes darkened. "And if I do?" "He'll smile," Eli said, "and pretend he never broke my heart." Dominic opened the gate. Jonah stepped inside like he owned the place. "Eli," he said warmly, arms opening just slightly, like he expected a hug. "God, it's been forever." Eli didn't move. "You look expensive." Jonah laughed. "You look healthier." His gaze flicked, too quick, to Eli's neck. Dominic stepped forward. Jonah's smile didn't falter, but his attention sharpened. "And you must be the alpha." "Dominic Russo," Dominic said. State your business. Jonah blinked once. Ah, that Dominic. Eli stiffened. You know him? Everyone knows him, Jonah said lightly. I didn't realize you'd upgraded so dramatically, Eli. Careful, Dominic said. Jonah held up his hands. Relax. I'm not here to fight. I heard about the IVF situation. Eli's blood went cold. How? Jonah shrugged. Rumors travel, especially when a Mafia alpha's genetic material goes missing. Dominic's presence shifted. Subtle, dangerous. You should leave. Jonah ignored him, eyes on Eli. I wanted to check on you. Make sure you weren't coerced. Eli barked a laugh. You mean like you coerced me into suppressants for 3 years because my heat embarrassed you? Jonah winced. That's not fair. It is, Eli snapped. You loved me when I was quiet. Dominic felt it then. Eli's hurt bleeding through the bond. Old pain, sharp and unresolved. Jonah's voice softened. I was trying to protect you. No, Eli said. You were protecting yourself. Silence fell heavy. Jonah exhaled. I didn't come here to argue. I came because I still care. Dominic took a step closer to Eli, not touching, but there, a line drawn without words. Funny, Dominic said calmly. Because everything about your presence is destabilizing. Jonah finally looked at him properly. Really looked. Something like understanding dawned. You didn't claim him, Jonah said slowly. Eli bristled. That's none of your business. Jonah smiled, sharp and knowing. It is if he's carrying your child. Dominic's control cracked, just a fraction. Enough for Jonah to feel it. You don't get to speak about him, Dominic said quietly, like he's an object you misplaced. Jonah scoffed. Please, you think this is different? You think he won't end up swallowed by your world? Eli stepped forward. Stop. Both alphas stilled. I am not your regret, Eli said to Jonah, and I am not his possession. Jonah studied him, really studied him this time. Stronger posture, clearer eyes. You changed, Jonah said. Eli smiled thinly. You didn't. Jonah sighed. If you need anything at all, you know where to find me. Dominic's voice was ice. You will not return, Jonah smirked. We'll see. When he left, the silence he took with him felt heavier than his presence. Eli's hands shook. Dominic noticed immediately. Eli, don't, Eli said. Please, not yet. Dominic stepped back, giving space, but not distance. After a moment, Eli spoke again, voice rough. He made me feel small. For years. Dominic's jaw clenched. He doesn't get to do that anymore. Eli looked up at him. You don't get to fix it either. Dominic nodded. Then I'll just stand here. Eli's breath hitched. That's worse, Eli muttered. That makes me want to lean. Dominic didn't move, didn't reach. Eli stepped closer anyway. The bond warmed, steady, patient. Outside, unseen, Jonah paused at the end of the street and looked back once, eyes narrowing. This wasn't over. The article went live at 7:14 a.m. Eli knew because his phone wouldn't stop vibrating. He stared at the screen from the edge of the bed, heart thudding, the bond flaring hot with Dominic's sudden spike of anger from down the hall. What is it? Eli whispered, already knowing. The headline glared back at him. Mafia airs DNA scandal, Omega pregnant after IVF mistake. Sources claim coercion. Eli's hands went numb. No, he breathed. No. The door opened without a knock. Dominic stood there, fully dressed, phone crushed in his hand, eyes dark with something tightly leashed. They use the word coercion, Eli said hollowly. They're implying... I know, Dominic said. His voice was too calm. That scared Eli more than shouting ever could. They're painting you as a victim, Dominic continued, and me as a monster. Eli laughed weakly. I mean, brand consistency? Dominic didn't smile. Eli's bond flared, heat and fury braided together. This was Jonah, Eli said. It has to be. Dominic nodded once. I already know. You do? I had my people trace the leak, Dominic said. It came through a shell media firm, Jonah's partner funds. Eli closed his eyes. Of course. Dominic took a breath. Slow, deliberate. I can end this. Quietly. Eli's eyes snapped open. By hurting him. By stopping him, Dominic corrected. With violence, Eli said. Dominic didn't deny it. The bond trembled. Eli's fear brushing up against Dominic's instinct to eliminate the threat. No, Eli said firmly. You don't get to do that for me. Dominic's jaw tightened. He's endangering you. So are you, Eli shot back, then immediately winced. Sorry, that came out wrong. Dominic held his ground. Say what you mean, Eli swallowed. I mean, if you crush him, it proves the story. It makes me look like someone who needs an alpha to clean up his messes. Dominic exhaled slowly. You want to handle this yourself, he said. Eli nodded. With me. Not in front of me. Silence stretched. Finally, Dominic said, All right. Eli blinked. That's it? I won't touch him, Dominic said. Unless he touches you? The bond eased slightly. Later that day, the pressure became physical. Reporters camped outside the clinic. Anonymous sources questioned Eli's mental state. Old photos surfaced, Jonah and Eli at galas, smiling, intimate. One caption read, Before the Mafia Alpha. Was there a real love story? Eli stared at it until his vision blurred. He never loved me, Eli said quietly from the couch. Dominic sat across from him, posture open. I believe you, Eli laughed bitterly. You didn't even hesitate. I know what ownership looks like, Dominic said. And I know what choice looks like. That did it. Eli stood abruptly and paced. He's framing himself as the safe option, the reasonable one, the ex who still cares. Dominic's eyes sharpened. He's positioning himself, yes, Eli said. As my savior, the bond pulsed, warning. I want to confront him, Eli said. Dominic went still. That's dangerous. I know, Eli said. That's why I need you there. Dominic hesitated. I won't speak for you. I don't want you to, Eli said. I want you to stand behind me and let him see that I'm not alone, but I'm also not owned. Dominic studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. The meeting happened in public, a quiet cafe, cameras already lingering at a distance. Jonah arrived like he'd been expecting applause. Eli, he said warmly. I was worried about you. Eli didn't sit. You leaked my medical information. Jonah sighed. I protected you. No, Eli said clearly. You tried to control the narrative. Jonah's smile faltered when he noticed Dominic, standing back, arms crossed, silent. You brought him, Jonah said. Yes, Eli replied. But he didn't tell me what to say. Jonah's gaze flicked between them. You're making a mistake. Eli leaned forward. Here's the truth you didn't expect. I'm not trapped. I wasn't coerced. And I didn't choose you back then because you were safe. I chose you because I was afraid to want more. Jonah's face hardened. And now, Eli said, voice steady, I want honesty, even when it scares me. Dominic didn't move, didn't interrupt, didn't claim, and that was louder than any threat. Jonah stood abruptly. You'll regret this. Eli met his eyes. No, you will, because you lost the moment I stopped being small. Jonah left. The cameras caught everything. That night, back at the safe house, the silence felt different, earned. Eli stood by the window, shaking now that the adrenaline was gone. Dominic approached slowly. May I? Eli nodded. Dominic placed a hand on Eli's back, not possessive. Anchoring. Thank you, Eli whispered, for not stepping in. Dominic's voice was rough. That was the hardest thing I've done in years. Eli turned, eyes shining. You chose me anyway. Dominic nodded. Every time, Eli leaned in. Not a kiss this time, just a forehead pressed to Dominic's chest. The bond settled, warm, resolute. Outside, the world was watching. Inside, something fragile was becoming strong. The house was quiet in the way that only came after storms. Not the absence of noise, but the presence of calm. Eli stood barefoot in the living room, arms wrapped around himself, staring at nothing. The confrontation, the cameras, Jonah's face, it all felt distant now, like echoes fading down a long hallway. Behind him, Dominic waited. He had learned how to do that. You're shaking, Dominic said softly. Eli laughed under his breath. I think I've been shaking for months. I just stopped noticing. Dominic didn't reach for him. That mattered. Eli turned. Come here. Dominic did, not quickly. Not like instinct was pulling him, like choice was. They stood close enough that Eli could feel the heat of him, steady and grounding. The bond stirred, not urgent, not demanding. Open. Questioning. I don't want this to be about stress, Eli said quietly, or fear, or heat, or proving anything. Dominic nodded. Then what do you want it to be? Eli swallowed. His voice wavered, but he didn't look away. I want it to be because I trust you. Something in Dominic's expression broke open, just a crack, enough to let honesty through. I need you to know, Dominic said, low and careful, that if you say stop at any moment, I will. No resentment, no consequences. I know, Eli said, and he did. He reached out first, fingers brushing Dominic's wrist, then his hand, then settling against his chest right over Dominic's heart. It was steady. So, Eli murmured, this is me choosing. Dominic covered Eli's hand with his own, not trapping, not claiming, holding. The kiss this time was different, not cautious, not questioning, still gentle, but sure. Eli leaned into it, and Dominic met him halfway, the bond blooming warm and full between them. No rush, no hunger. Just want, quiet and deliberate. They moved together without speaking, down the hall, into the bedroom. Clothes were shed slowly, like neither of them wanted to break the spell by moving too fast. Every touch asked permission. Every breath waited for an answer. Dominic pressed his forehead to Eli's and whispered, "You're safe." Eli smiled, soft and real. I know. The rest didn't need words. Only closeness, only warmth, only the certainty that neither of them was alone anymore. The bond settled deep, not sealed, not locked, but anchored, content, present. Later, wrapped in quiet and shared heat, Eli lay with his head against Dominic's shoulder, listening to his breathing slow. This doesn't change everything, Eli said drowsily. Dominic brushed his fingers through Eli's hair. No. But it changes something, Eli added. Yes, Dominic said. It does. Eli closed his eyes. For the first time since the mistake, since the fear, since the world decided his body was a battlefield, he felt whole, not claimed, not owned, chosen, and choosing back. Eli woke slowly, not with panic, not with confusion, with warmth. It took him a moment to realize why. There was an arm around his waist, solid and careful, like it had been placed there deliberately, and then left unmoving out of respect. Dominic was still asleep. That alone felt unreal. Eli studied him in the early light, the hard lines of his face softened by rest. No armor, no calculation. Just a man breathing evenly beside him. I did this, Eli thought faintly. I chose this. The bond was different now, not louder, but deeper, like a river that had stopped rushing and started flowing. It carried emotion without overwhelming him. Calm, a low hum of contentment that startled Eli enough to make his chest ache. He shifted slightly. Dominic woke instantly, not startled. Aware. You okay? Dominic murmured, voice rough with sleep. Eli smiled despite himself. You're terrifying even unconscious. Dominic exhaled, relief softening his expression when he saw Eli smiling. You didn't disappear. I'm still here, Eli said. Then, more quietly, are you? Dominic didn't answer with words. He tightened his arm just enough to be felt. No more. Yes. Eli let himself lean back. Silence settled, not awkward, not heavy. Eventually Eli said, This is usually the part where things get weird. Dominic huffed a quiet laugh. Define weird, regret, awkward distance. People pretending last night didn't mean anything, or pretending it meant everything. Dominic turned onto his side so he could see Eli properly. And what do you want it to mean? Eli hesitated. I don't want promises, he said, or labels, or destiny. Dominic nodded. Good. Eli blinked. Good. I don't trust things that don't leave room to breathe, Dominic said. I want this to be chosen. Again. Every day. Something tight in Eli's chest loosened. That's unexpectedly healthy for a Mafia alpha. Dominic's mouth curved. Don't tell anyone. Later, reality crept back in. Phones buzzed. Messages stacked up. The world hadn't paused just because Eli felt different. Dr. Shaw texted first. Vitals? Any discomfort? Emotional changes? Eli stared at the message, then typed back. Emotionally? Complicated. Physically? Stable. Dominic glanced over his shoulder. You don't owe her details. I know, Eli said, but this affects the bond, the pregnancy, everything. Dominic moved closer. Then we handle it together. Together? The word settled warmly between them. By midday, the media storm shifted tone. Footage from the cafe had circulated. Eli's calm confrontation, Dominic's visible restraint, Public opinion wavered. Omega speaks for himself. Alpha's silence speaks volumes. Jonah went quiet. That worried Dominic more than noise ever could. That evening, Eli sat on the couch, absently tracing circles on his stomach. "I'm scared," he admitted suddenly. Dominic looked up from across the room. "Of what?" "That now that we crossed that line," Eli said, "I'll want more. And I don't know if I'm ready for what more might cost." Dominic came to sit beside him, not touching yet. "Then we stop where you need to stop." Eli turned to him. "And if you want more," Dominic met his gaze steadily, "then I'll want it with you, not instead of you." Eli swallowed hard. The bond responded, not flaring, not tightening, steady, anchored. That night, they didn't rush back into anything. They shared a bed, fully clothed, a careful line of space between them that slowly disappeared as sleep tugged them closer. Eli woke once in the night, half curled into Dominic's side. He didn't move away. Neither did Dominic. Outside, threat still existed. Jonah was still out there. The pregnancy was still complicated. The world was still watching. But inside that room, something fragile had survived its first test. Not passion, not instinct. Choice. And that, Eli knew, was going to change everything. The first new face arrived with espresso and bad news. She walked into the safe house like she owned the air. Tailored suit, sharp eyes, beta scent cut clean and neutral. No fear. No submission. No challenge either, just competence. "Dominic Russo," she said, setting 2 cups down on the table. "You're late responding to the council." Dominic stiffened. "Bianca?" Eli blinked. "Council?" Bianca's gaze flicked to him, quick, assessing, not unkind. "Ah, you must be the Omega who broke the internet." Eli snorted. "I hate that sentence. I hate that it's accurate," Bianca replied calmly. She extended a hand. "Bianca Vale, I clean messes powerful men don't want traced back to them." Eli shook her hand. "That's reassuring?" "It's honest," Bianca said. "You'll like me." Dominic crossed his arms. "Why are you here?" Bianca leaned back. "Because 3 syndicates are circling your territory like sharks. The IVF clinic is under federal ethics review, and someone leaked sealed council minutes last night." Eli's stomach dropped. "That sounds bad." Bianca smiled thinly. "It's catastrophic." Dominic swore under his breath. Before Eli could ask anything else, the door buzzed again. Dominic frowned. No one else was scheduled. Bianca's eyebrow arched. Busy morning. The second arrival was the opposite of Bianca. Young. Omega. Nervous energy wrapped in defiance. They wore a long coat and carried a tablet hugged to their chest like a shield. "Eli Hale," they asked. Eli stood slowly. "Yes? I'm Noor," they said. "From the Coalition for Omega Autonomy." Dominic went still. Bianca muttered, "Oh, this just got political." Noor met Eli's eyes. "We want to help you." "With what?" Eli asked carefully. "With making sure what happened to you," Noor said, voice steady despite the tension in the room, "doesn't happen to anyone else." Silence fell. Bianca watched Dominic. Dominic watched Eli. Eli felt the bond hum, not warning, not fear. Curiosity. "You're using my story," Eli said. "No," Noor replied. "We're amplifying your voice. There's a difference." Dominic finally spoke. "This puts him in danger." Noor didn't flinch. So does silence. Bianca let out a low whistle. "Kids got teeth." Eli exhaled slowly. "Okay, start talking." They did. By noon, the safe house felt like a war room. Bianca laid out maps and financial flows. Jonah's partner is laundering influence through concerned investors. They want the council to strip Dominic of provisional authority over you and place Eli under protective oversight. Eli recoiled like a ward. "Yes," Bianca said bluntly. A polite cage. Noor slid their tablet across the table. "And the clinic review? It's being fast-tracked. If they find negligence, the pregnancy could become classified evidence." Eli's hand curled instinctively over his stomach. Dominic's control snapped just enough to be felt. "No one is taking him," Dominic said, voice deadly calm. Bianca held up a finger. "Careful. That's exactly the narrative they want." Eli looked at Dominic. "She's right." Dominic closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, the fire was banked, but not gone. "Then we play smarter." Noor hesitated, then said, "There's more." Everyone turned. "There's another Omega," Noor continued quietly. "Same clinic, same timeline, different alpha donor." She reached out after seeing you on the news. Eli's breath caught. Another mistake? No, Noor said. A cover-up. Bianca's smile vanished. Someone's been running a long game. Dominic's voice was cold. Who benefits? Noor swallowed. An alliance trying to destabilize Alpha Omega consent laws. The room went very still. Eli laughed softly, disbelieving. So I'm pregnant because someone wanted to start a political war. Bianca met his eyes. Welcome to power. Later, when the others were deep in planning, Eli slipped away to the balcony. The city sprawled beneath him. Bright, indifferent. Dominic joined him quietly. You okay? Dominic asked. Eli leaned on the railing. I thought this was about us. About a mistake. About learning how not to drown. And now, Dominic said. Now I'm a symbol, Eli said. And I hate it. Dominic didn't contradict him. You don't have to carry it alone. Eli looked at him. You keep saying that. Because it's still true, Dominic said. Then softer, but if you want to step away, I'll shield you. Eli shook his head slowly. No, I won't let them turn me into a cautionary tale. The bond warmed, approval, pride, steady as bedrock. Inside, Bianca's voice rose sharply. You're not going to like this next part. Eli and Dominic exchanged a look. Eli squared his shoulders. I never do. Behind them, plots tightened. Allies gathered. Enemies moved in silence. And for the first time, the story was bigger than either of them, which meant the stakes were about to get deadly. Dominic hadn't slept. Not really. He stood in the secure room beneath the safe house. Concrete walls, signal dampeners, old favors embedded in every bolt, watching faces appear one by one on the screen. Bianca stood beside him, arms crossed. You're about to make enemies you can't kill. Dominic didn't look away. Then I'll have to outlive them. The first face flickered into focus. Counselor Marcello Virek. Alpha. Old money. Old laws. You're escalating, Virek said coolly. This could have been handled quietly. Dominic leaned forward. You mean buried? Virek smiled. You mean stabilized? The second face appeared. Dr. Alina Kessler, Eli's doctor's supervisor. Bianca inhaled sharply. Well, that answers that. Dominic felt something cold settle in his chest. Kessler adjusted her glasses. Dominic Russo, you're emotional. That makes you predictable. Explain, Dominic said. Kessler sighed, like a teacher indulging a slow student. IVF clinics have been under scrutiny for years. Consent laws are inefficient. Omegas want autonomy. Alphas want certainty. We created a scenario that forced the issue. Bianca's voice was ice. You use people as test cases. Volunteers, Kessler corrected. Incentivized, carefully selected. Dominic's jaw tightened. Eli was not a volunteer. No, Kessler said. He was an accelerant. Virek leaned in. A sympathetic Omega. A powerful Alpha. Public outrage. Legal pressure. The perfect storm to rewrite reproductive governance. Dominic felt it then. The bond reacting violently. Eli's distant unease bleeding through like static. You endangered him, Dominic said softly. Kessler tilted her head. Progress requires discomfort. Bianca stepped forward. You falsified donor logs. Yes, Kessler said calmly. And you won't prove it. Dominic smiled. It wasn't kind. You underestimated one thing, he said. You assumed I'd protect him by hiding him. Virek frowned. What are you implying? I'm going to put you in the light, Dominic said. Every message, every payment, every Omega you used. Kessler's expression tightened for the first time. You'll cause panic. Dominic's voice dropped. Good. The call ended abruptly. Bianca let out a slow breath. You just declared war on the council. Yes, Dominic said. And if they retaliate, Bianca added, they'll go for Eli. Dominic turned away. Which is why he needs to hear this from me. Eli was in the kitchen with Noor, scrolling through testimonies when Dominic entered. One look at his face and Eli stood. What happened? Dominic didn't soften it. We know who did it. Eli's breath caught. Who? Dominic told him. Every word felt like a stone dropping into water. Ripples of shock, anger, disbelief. They planned me, Eli said faintly. They exploited you, Dominic corrected. Eli laughed, sharp, broken. For policy. The bond flared hot and wild. Eli's fear spiking as understanding settled in. "They'll come for me," Eli said. "Yes," Dominic replied honestly. Silence stretched. Then Eli straightened. "Okay," he said. Dominic blinked. "Okay, I'm done being reactive," Eli said. "If they want a symbol, I'll be one they can't control." Noor looked up, eyes wide. "Eli, no," Eli said gently. "This is my choice." Dominic searched his face. "This puts you in danger." Eli stepped closer. "So does carrying your child in a world that thinks omegas are leverage." That hit harder than any threat. Dominic nodded once. "Then we do this together." Eli's hand slid into his. The bond surged, not frantic, focused, aligned. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. News alerts began to ping. Somewhere, powerful people realized their shadows were shrinking. And for the first time, the ones who had pulled the strings understood something crucial. They weren't dealing with a frightened Omega. They were dealing with a man who had chosen to stand, and an alpha who had chosen to follow his lead. They gave Eli 10 minutes. That was it. 10 minutes before the broadcast went live. 10 minutes before his face would be everywhere, before his voice would stop belonging only to him. The studio wasn't a studio at all, just a reinforced media room Bianca trusted more than most hospitals. Neutral lighting, no dramatic backdrop, no softening filters. "Authenticity polls better than Polish," Bianca said, straightening Eli's mic. "Also, it scares liars." Eli swallowed. "Good." Dominic stood a few steps back, arms folded, presence like a wall at Eli's spine, not looming. Grounding. "You don't have to do this," Dominic said quietly. "For the third time." Eli smiled faintly. "You already promised not to decide that for me." Dominic nodded. "I know. I just need you to hear it anyway." Across the room, Noor paced with a tablet. "We're live streaming to 3 independent networks. No council oversight. Comments will be locked for the first 5 minutes. Bianca glanced at Dominic. "Security?" "Tight," Dominic said. "If anything moves wrong, we pull him." Eli looked back at him. "No," Dominic stiffened. "Eli, if something goes wrong," Eli said calmly, "I finish speaking first." The bond flared, not panic. Pride and terror braided together. Dominic exhaled through his nose. "You're impossible!" Eli grinned. "You like that?" The countdown began. 5. Eli closed his eyes. He thought about Jonah's smile, about the clinic's white walls, about waking up afraid and choosing not to be anymore. 4. Dominic stepped closer, not touching, but there. "I'm with you." Eli nodded. "I know." 3. Bianca raised 2 fingers. "Remember, plain truth, no rhetoric." Eli opened his eyes. 2. The red light blinked on. 1. They were live. Eli looked straight into the camera. "My name is Eli Hale," he said, voice steady. "I'm an Omega, I'm pregnant, and I'm not a victim." The silence on the other side of the lens felt enormous. "I didn't ask to be part of a political experiment," Eli continued. "I didn't consent to having my body used as leverage, and I'm done letting other people speak for me." Behind the scenes, alerts spiked. Viewership climbing fast. "I was told this pregnancy was a mistake," Eli said. "It wasn't. It was a choice made by people who thought Omegas wouldn't fight back if the language sounded medical enough." Bianca's eyes flicked to the feed. Numbers skyrocketing. Eli took a breath. "I want to be very clear, I am not owned. Not by the clinic, not by the council, not by the alpha whose DNA was used without my consent." Dominic's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. "He didn't claim me," Eli said. "He didn't silence me. He didn't make decisions for me. And that's why he's standing where he is." Eli turned his head slightly, not to look at Dominic, but to acknowledge him. "I am choosing to continue this pregnancy," Eli said. "Not because I was forced, not because I was protected, but because it's mine." The room was dead silent. "And to anyone watching who thinks this will scare me back into quiet," Eli finished, eyes hard and bright, "you waited too long." The red light shut off. For half a second, nothing happened. Then the room exploded with noise, alerts, incoming calls, screens lighting up. Noor stared at their tablet. "Eli, it's everywhere." Bianca let out a low, impressed laugh. "You just rewrote the frame." Dominic didn't move. He was watching Eli. Eli turned, and the adrenaline finally cracked. His hands shook. Dominic closed the distance in 2 steps and caught him, not in an embrace, but with one steady hand at his back. "I'm okay," Eli said quickly. "I know," Dominic replied. "I've got you anyway." Then Bianca's calm chimed. Sharp, urgent. "We have movement," she said. Unmarked vehicles rerouting toward this location. Dominic's posture changed instantly. How many? Enough. Eli looked up at him. So this is the part where they try to shut me up. Dominic met his gaze, fierce and unwavering. This is the part where they fail. Alarms began to sound, controlled, internal. Noor grabbed their tablet. Alternate exit is clear, for now. Bianca pointed toward the back corridor. We move, now. As they hurried down the hall, Eli felt the bond lock in. Not possessive, not panicked, aligned. They're going to come harder now, Eli said breathlessly. Yes, Dominic said. They will. Eli glanced up at him, eyes bright despite everything. Good. Dominic's mouth curved, dangerous, proud. That's my Omega. Eli snorted. Careful. Dominic leaned close as they reached the armored doors. Not ownership, he murmured. Acknowledgement. Outside, engines roared. The city braced. And somewhere, the people who had engineered silence realized too late that they'd handed a microphone to the wrong person. They didn't make it to the safe house. The armored vehicle cut hard through side streets, sirens echoing too close for comfort. Bianca barking orders into her comm while Noor tracked movement with shaking fingers. Eli sat rigid beside Dominic, adrenaline buzzing so loud it felt like heat under his skin. The bond was on fire. Not panic, something darker, sharper, need braided with defiance. You feel that, Eli said quietly. Dominic didn't look at him. Yes, tell me I'm imagining it. Dominic's jaw flexed. You're not? The broadcast had done more than expose the council. It had flipped something internal. Eli's Omega instincts, long suppressed, now fully awake and furious, claimless, unowned, but very, very aware of the alpha beside him. Bianca snapped. Change of plans. Secondary location. No press, no observers. The vehicle stopped under a private building with reinforced doors. They were rushed inside, up a private elevator, through layers of security, until suddenly, abruptly, it was quiet. A room. Dim. Shielded, the door sealed behind them. Eli exhaled hard, and then the adrenaline crashed. He swayed. Dominic caught him instantly. This time he didn't hesitate. Eli gripped Dominic's coat, breath uneven. I'm okay, just too much, Dominic finished softly. Eli laughed shakily. That obvious? Dominic guided him to the bed, not laying him down, just sitting beside him. Close, grounding. You lit a match in a room full of gasoline, Dominic murmured. Your body is responding. Eli swallowed. His skin felt tight, hypersensitive. Every inch of him was aware of Dominic's proximity, his scent, the steady restraint in his posture. This isn't a heat, Eli said. No, Dominic agreed. It's choice under pressure. Eli looked at him, really looked. Dominic was wound tight, controlled to the edge of pain. His eyes tracked Eli like he was something precious and dangerous all at once. Dawn, hold back, Eli said quietly. Dominic froze. Not like that. Eli clarified. I mean, be honest. Dominic exhaled, slow and deep. I want you, he said. I want you enough that it scares me. Eli's breath hitched. Still your choice, Dominic added immediately. Always. Eli leaned forward, not rushed. Intentional. He pressed his forehead to Dominic's shoulder, breathing him in. The contact sent heat rolling through him, sharp, grounding, intimate. Stay, Eli said. Dominic's hand hovered, then settled at Eli's waist, firm. Careful, I'm not going anywhere. The kiss was not gentle this time. It was controlled, but hungry. All the things they hadn't allowed themselves to touch before burned in the space between them. Eli's hand slid into Dominic's hair. Dominic's grip tightened just enough to make Eli gasp. The bond flared, bright, intoxicating. Eli, Dominic warned softly, voice rough. If we keep going... I know, Eli said, lips brushing his. I want to... This time, when they moved to the bed, there was urgency, not desperation, intent. Clothes were shed faster, hands learning without hesitation, mouths mapping heat and breath and want. Dominic braced himself above Eli, every line of his body screaming restraint. You say stop, he murmured. Even once. I won't, Eli said, eyes dark, unafraid. Not tonight. The world narrowed, to touch, to breath, to the electric awareness of two people choosing each other in the eye of a storm. The door stayed locked. The city raged outside, power shifted in distant rooms. Inside, the bond burned bright, unclaimed but aligned, a promise made without words. Later, much later, Eli lay warm and breathless against Dominic's chest, listening to his heart slow. That was, Eli murmured, significantly more reckless than last time. Dominic huffed a low laugh. You started a revolution today. Eli smiled, lazy and satisfied. I needed a release. Dominic kissed his hair. You're dangerous. I know, Eli said softly. And you stayed anyway. Dominic's arm tightened. Protective, not possessive. Every time. Outside, the hunt had begun. Inside, they had chosen each other again. And that was going to cost everyone else dearly. Eli knew something was wrong the moment he woke up. Not fear. Not pain. Awareness. His body felt louder, like every nerve had been tuned a fraction too sharp, every breath carrying more information than it should. The bond wasn't just present, it was responsive, humming low and steady, like it had learned a new language. Overnight, Dominic was awake beside him, propped on one elbow, watching him with an intensity that made Eli's stomach flip. You're staring, Eli murmured. You feel different, Dominic said. Eli frowned. You say that like it's a diagnosis. Dominic hesitated. It might be that got Eli sitting up. Okay, that's ominous. Before Dominic could answer, Eli's comm chimed. Bianca's priority channel. Dominic answered it without looking away from Eli. Say it, Bianca said. I'm already irritated. Dr. Shaw's voice cut in tight and focused. Eli, I need you to come in immediately. Eli's pulse spiked. Is the baby? The pregnancy is stable, Shaw said quickly. But the bond markers aren't. Dominic went still. Explain, he said. Shaw exhaled. You didn't complete a claiming bond, but you crossed a neurological threshold last night. Emotional imprinting, hormonal synchronization, and alpha-omega feedback loops. Eli stared. In English? You accidentally initiated a resonant bond, Shaw said. Rare, voluntary, extremely hard to reverse. The room went quiet. Dominic's voice was low. Does it endanger him? No, Shaw said. But it changes how stress, heat, and instinct are processed. You'll feel each other more clearly. Emotions will bleed through easier. Eli swallowed. And the baby? A pause. Then, the fetus is responding positively, very positively, Bianca muttered. Of course it is. Eli closed his eyes. So last night didn't just change us. No, Shaw said. It anchored the pregnancy. Dominic reached for Eli's hand without thinking. This time, Eli didn't pull away. After the call ended, the silence felt heavier. So, Eli said carefully, we're more connected. Yes, Dominic said. But not claimed, Eli added. Dominic met his gaze. No, still your choice. Eli exhaled, some tension easing. Good. Bianca's comm chimed again, harder this time. We have a problem, she said. Jonah just went public. The screen flared to life. Jonah stood behind a podium, expression solemn, hands folded just right, headlines scrolled beneath him. Former partner speaks out. I fear for Eli's safety. Eli let out a sharp laugh. Unbelievable. He's calling for an emergency council intervention, Bianca said, citing psychological coercion and biological manipulation. Dominic's jaw tightened. He's exploiting the bond. Yes, Bianca said. And here's the part you won't like. He has backing. Another name appeared on screen. Counselor Virek. Eli's smile vanished. They're going to argue. I'm compromised, Eli said quietly. That I can't consent anymore. Dominic's voice was dangerous. They're wrong. But convincing them of that means exposure, Eli said. Medical records. Bond data. Everything. The bond stirred, uneasy but steady. Eli straightened. Then we don't hide it, he said. Dominic looked at him sharply. Eli, they think intimacy weakened me, Eli continued. That choosing you made me vulnerable. He met Dominic's eyes, fierce and certain. Let's prove them wrong, Bianca smiled slowly. I was hoping you'd say that. Outside, pressure mounted, legal threats, council maneuvers. Jonah's voice everywhere, dripping concern like poison. Inside, something new had taken root, not a claim, not a cage, a connection forged under fire, and strong enough to survive what came next. And whatever the council planned to do to them, they were about to learn that bonds born of choice don't break easily. The problem with a resonant bond was not that it told the truth, it was that it told pieces of the truth, out of order, without context, stripped of explanation. Eli learned this the hard way. It started small, a flicker of irritation that wasn't his, a spike of cold anger that didn't belong to his thoughts, a pulse of something dark and sharp every time Dominic's calm lit up. Eli tried to ignore it. Dominic tried to suppress it. They both failed. Dominic stood in the briefing room with Bianca and Noor, voice clipped and precise as they discussed council procedure. Eli lingered by the doorway, pretending to read updates on his tablet. Bianca said, "If Virek pushes for a capacity review, Jonah will testify." The name hit the bond like a blade. Dominic's reaction was immediate. Controlled fury, cold and lethal. Eli flinched. Oh, so that's what that feels like. Not concern, not fear. Possessive anger. Eli's jaw tightened. When the meeting ended, Bianca and Noor left quickly. Bianca giving Eli a look that said, "Don't do this now." Eli did it anyway. "You don't trust me," Eli said. Dominic paused mid-step. "What, you don't trust me to handle Jonah?" Eli continued, voice too calm. "You feel angry every time his name comes up?" Dominic frowned. "I feel angry because he's a threat. That's not what it feels like," Eli snapped. Silence. Dominic turned fully toward him. "Then what does it feel like?" "Like jealousy," Eli said. "Like you think he still has a claim on me." Dominic's eyes went dark. "That's not—" "Don't," Eli cut in. "I feel it, Dominic. You don't get to tell me I'm wrong." Dominic exhaled slowly, visibly reining himself in. "You're reading instinct without intention." Eli laughed bitterly. "Funny. Jonah used to say the same thing, that landed hard." Dominic's control slipped, just enough for Eli to feel it. Hurt, anger. Something dangerously close to rejection. "I am not Jonah," Dominic said quietly. "No," Eli shot back. "Jonah wanted to control me. You want to protect me. Same cage, different paint." The bond recoiled, sharp, defensive. Dominic stepped back like he'd been struck. "Is that what you think?" he asked. Eli hesitated. He didn't know anymore. That was the worst part. Later, alone in his room, Eli paced, heart racing. The bond buzzed with Dominic's restrained fury from somewhere else in the building. Cold, silent, dangerous. Eli pressed his hands to his temples. "Stop," he whispered. "Just stop." It didn't. Across the safe house, Dominic stood with Bianca, fists clenched. "You need to talk to him," Bianca said flatly. "I tried," Dominic replied. "He thinks I don't see him as capable." "And you think he doesn't see how much you're holding back," Bianca said. "Congratulations, you're both idiots." Dominic didn't argue. That night, Jonah's face appeared on the news again. Former partner claims the Alpha I's using the bond to isolate him. Eli stared at the screen, stomach twisting. The bond flared. Dominic was watching too. The anger surged, hot, vicious, unchecked, and for one terrible moment, Eli didn't know who it was directed at. Jonah or him? When Dominic came to Eli's door, Eli didn't open it. "Eli," Dominic said through the wood. "We need to talk." "Not now," Eli replied, voice shaking despite himself. "I can't tell what's mine and what's yours." Silence. Then, quietly, "I would never hate you." Eli swallowed hard. "Then why does it feel like you resent him?" Eli asked. "Like you're angry that I ever loved someone else." Dominic didn't answer immediately. That hesitation was all the answer Eli needed. The bond pulsed, jealousy, fear, something ugly and human. "I can't compete with a ghost," Dominic said finally, "and I hate that it still hurts you." Eli's chest tightened. "That's not fair." "No," Dominic agreed, "it's not." The bond twisted, strained by unsaid words. Eli slid down the door, sitting on the floor. "I don't want to be the thing that makes you cruel." Dominic rested his forehead against the other side of the door. "I don't want to be the thing that makes you feel small." They stayed like that, separated, by inches and misunderstanding. No touch, no resolution. Just the awful knowledge that caring this much gave them new ways to hurt each other. Outside, Jonah smiled for the cameras. Inside, the bond trembled, not breaking, but dangerously stretched, and neither of them knew which words would fix it, or whether they were already too late. Eli didn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, the bond pulsed, erratic, restless, echoing Dominic's restraint like a held breath stretched too long. Not anger exactly, something worse. Distance. By morning, Bianca had made the decision for them. "They're forcing an emergency hearing," she said briskly. "Closed council chamber. Jonah will be there, so will Virek." Eli's stomach dropped. Today, in an hour. Dominic stood across the room, silent. He hadn't looked at Eli since the night before. That hurt more than the shouting would have. The council chamber was all cold glass and steel, designed to intimidate without leaving fingerprints. Eli sat at the center table, hands folded, posture composed. Dominic stood behind him one step back, officially security detail, unofficially, something else. Jonah entered last. He looked good. Calm, concerned, wearing the face he used to wear when he wanted Eli to doubt himself. Eli, Jonah said softly, eyes flicking to Dominic. I'm glad you're safe. Eli said nothing. Virik leaned forward. We're here to assess whether Mr. Hale's current condition compromises his autonomy. Dominic stiffened. Jonah sighed as if burdened by care. I didn't want it to come to this, but Eli has always been susceptible. Bonds affect him deeply. The bond flared, hot, defensive. Dominic felt it. So did the council. Eli clenched his jaw. You don't get to speak for me. Jonah smiled sadly. You used to ask me to. That was a lie, but it was a good one. Dominic stepped forward before he could stop himself. That's enough. Virik's eyes sharpened. Alpha interference noted. Eli turned sharply. Dominic, don't. Too late. Jonah's gaze slid to Dominic, calculating. See? This is what I mean. He reacts before Eli can decide for himself. The bond spiked, anger, sharp and uncontrolled. Eli felt it slam into him like a wave, and something in him snapped. He stood abruptly. Stop projecting your guilt onto him. Jonah blinked. Eli, you didn't lose me because of a bond, Eli continued, voice shaking now. You lost me because you wanted obedience, not partnership. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Virik raised a hand. Control yourself, Mr. Hale. Dominic's restraint cracked. You are deliberately provoking him, Dominic said, voice low and lethal. You're exploiting emotional history to destabilize a bonded Omega under stress. Silence. Virik's mouth curved. Thank you for demonstrating my point. The room tilted. Eli turned to Dominic slowly. I told you not to. Dominic looked at him, really looked. And for the first time Eli felt something raw bleed through the bond. Fear, not of the council, of losing Eli. I couldn't let him, Dominic began. You did, Eli said quietly. You just let them see exactly what they wanted. The hearing ended in chaos. No ruling yet, no verdict. Just doubt seated deep and wide. Back at the safe house, the silence was unbearable. Eli paced. Dominic stood near the door, hands clenched at his sides. You made me look weak, Eli said. Dominic flinched. That was not my intention. But it was the result, Eli shot back. You stepped in like I couldn't defend myself. I wasn't thinking politically, Dominic said. I was thinking about you. That's the problem, Eli said. I don't want to be your weakness. Dominic's voice dropped. You're not. Then why does the bond feel like a leash right now? Eli demanded. That cut deep. Dominic went still if that's how you see it, he said carefully. Then we need distance. The word hit harder than shouting ever could. Eli stared. You don't mean that. Dominic looked away. Until you can tell what you feel without hearing me in it. Yes, I do. The bond screamed in protest. Raw, aching, furious. Eli swallowed past the lump in his throat. Fine. Dominic paused at the door. I would never take your agency from you. Eli didn't answer. The door closed. The bond didn't break, but it went quiet. Too quiet. Hours later, alone, Eli sat on the edge of the bed, hand pressed to his abdomen, breath unsteady. I didn't mean it, he whispered to the empty room. I just needed you to trust me. Somewhere else in the building, Dominic braced his hands against a wall, eyes closed, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. I do, he murmured. That's why I'm walking away. Outside, Jonah gave another interview. Inside, the bond held, strained, aching, unresolved, and neither of them realized yet that the silence between them was exactly what Jonah had been waiting for. The bond didn't like distance. That became obvious within hours. Eli woke from a shallow, fractured sleep with nausea curling low in his stomach and a sharp pressure behind his eyes. Not pain. Imbalance. Like leaning too far back on a chair and waiting to fall. Dr. Shaw didn't bother softening it. The bond is stabilizing the pregnancy, she said, and right now it's under strain. Eli stared at the ceiling. So what? If we stay apart, I get sick. You get overwhelmed, Shaw corrected. Your instincts are trying to recalibrate without their counterpoint. Eli laughed weakly. That's one way to describe Dominic. Across the city, Dominic wasn't doing much better. Bianca found him in the training room, punching a reinforced wall hard enough to dent it. Congratulations, she said dryly. You're officially an idiot. Dominic didn't stop. I walked away so he wouldn't feel controlled, and in doing so, Bianca said, You let Jonah step in unchallenged. That got his attention. She tossed a tablet onto the bench. We traced Jonah's testimony prep. He's been coordinating with Virek for weeks, before the bond, before the hearing. He wanted you gone. Dominic stared at the screen, fury going cold and precise. Eli needs to see this, he said. Then stop hiding, Bianca snapped. Go talk to him, as a person, not an alpha. The confrontation didn't happen in a chamber or a courtroom. It happened in the safehouse kitchen, of all places. Eli stood barefoot, stirring tea he wasn't going to drink, when Dominic walked in. They froze. The bond surged. Relief, hurt, longing, all tangled and unfiltered. Eli spoke first. You weren't wrong to be angry, Dominic swallowed. I was wrong not to tell you why. They stood there, the silence thick but no longer poisonous. I don't resent your past, Dominic said quietly. I resent that he still thinks he owns it. Eli's shoulders sagged. I don't need you to fight my battles. I need you to believe I can stand. Dominic stepped closer, but stopped short. I do. I just don't always know how to stop being afraid of losing you. Eli let out a shaky breath, then stopped deciding alone. That did it. The bond eased, not snapping back but settling. Listening, they watched the evidence together. Jonah's messages, the coordination, the lies laid bare. By the time Bianca said we can end him politically, Eli already knew the cost. He's going to try one last time, Eli said. Publicly. And he did. Jonah called a press conference that evening, voice trembling with practiced sincerity, until Eli walked on stage beside Dominic, not behind him, beside him. I'm bonded, Eli said clearly. By choice. Not claimed, not controlled. Jonah faltered. And the person standing next to me has never taken my voice, Eli continued. But you tried to. The data dropped. Screens lit up. The truth moved faster than Jonah could recover. By morning, Virek had resigned. Jonah vanished from the news cycle entirely. The council backed down. Weeks later, the city felt quieter. Eli stood by the window, hand resting over the subtle curve of his abdomen, Dominic's presence steady behind him. So, Eli said, glancing back, we survived. Dominic smiled faintly, barely. Eli turned fully, serious now. The bond doesn't own us. No, Dominic agreed, but it listens. Eli reached for him this time. Then let's keep choosing. Dominic covered Eli's hand with his own. Every day, outside, the world kept turning. Corrupt systems cracking, power shifting, consequences unfolding. Inside, something gentler took root. Not a fairy tale, not a cage, just two people, bound not by accident or instinct, but by choice, truth, and the willingness to stay when it got hard. 6 months later, the city barely remembered the scandal. Names faded fast when power reshuffled itself into quieter hands. The council rebranded. New ethics panels formed. Jonah's name existed only in archived footage and legal footnotes, warnings, not legends. Eli preferred it that way. He sat on the balcony of their apartment, a fact that still startled him sometimes. Morning light spilling across the floor, tea cooling forgotten in his hands. Inside, Dominic moved with careful purpose, adjusting furniture that didn't need adjusting, pretending not to watch Eli every few seconds. You're hovering, Eli said fondly. Dominic paused. Am I? Yes, Eli said. You've realigned that chair 3 times. Dominic sighed and finally joined him, sitting close but not crowding. He rested a hand on Eli's knee, present, not possessive. How do you feel, he asked. Eli considered it honestly. The bond hummed low and steady now, no longer loud, no longer demanding, just there. Like background music you'd miss only if it stopped. Like myself, Eli said. Just louder about what I won't tolerate. Dominic smiled. That's new. Eli smirked. You brought chaos into my life. You started it, Dominic said mildly, with the IVF paperwork. They laughed, soft, unguarded. The pregnancy had changed shape over time. Less fear, less speculation, more acceptance. The council had backed off entirely once public sympathy turned, and once Eli made it abundantly clear he would burn systems down before letting them decide his body again. Dominic never once tried to take that control. That mattered. I was thinking, Eli said, absently tracing circles over his abdomen. About claiming? Dominic stilled, but didn't tense. Not now, Eli added quickly. Just someday. Maybe? Dominic nodded. Whenever you choose, Eli leaned into him. You really learned. I had good motivation, Dominic said. They stayed like that for a while, listening to the city wake. Later, Bianca stopped by with documents and bad coffee, and unsolicited commentary. You two are disgustingly functional, she said. I preferred you dramatic. Give it time, Eli replied sweetly. Bianca glanced at Dominic. You still dangerous? Dominic smiled thinly. Only when necessary. Good, Bianca said. The world could use fewer monsters and more people who know when to stop. After she left, Eli stood by the window again. You know, he said quietly, this all started because of a mistake. Dominic joined him, arm sliding around his waist. It stopped being a mistake when you chose what to do with it. Eli rested his head against Dominic's shoulder. They hadn't fixed the world. They hadn't escaped consequences. They hadn't erased the past, but they had built something deliberate in the aftermath. Truth where there had been lies, choice where there had been coercion, connection without ownership. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, the bond pulsed, calm, alive, listening. And for the first time since the wrong vial, the wrong name, the wrong future, everything felt right. Epilogue. The first contraction hit at dawn. Eli had been half asleep, curled on his side, Dominic's arm warm and solid around him. For a moment, he thought it was another false alarm, another practice wave his body had been teasing him with for weeks. Then it happened again, stronger, real. Eli inhaled sharply. Dominic was awake instantly. You're not breathing like you usually do, he said, already sitting up. Eli huffed a breath that was half a laugh, half disbelief. I think it's time. The bond surged, not panic, not dominance, not instinctive frenzy. Focus. Dominic moved like he had trained for this his entire life. Comms activated, bag grabbed, one hand steady at Eli's back, grounding him without crowding. I'm here, Dominic said, low and unwavering. I'm not leaving. Eli squeezed his hand hard. You'd regret it if you did. The medical wing was quiet, efficient, prepared. Dr. Shaw met them with a calm smile that didn't quite hide her excitement. 2 heartbeats, she said as they settled Eli in. Still perfectly synchronized. Dominic felt it then, both of them. Not just the familiar, steady presence anchored to Eli, but another. And another, different, distinct, alive. Hours blurred together. Time lost meaning between breath and pressure, and Dominic's voice counting softly in Eli's ear when the world narrowed too much. You're doing this, Dominic murmured. You're incredible. Don't romanticize this, Eli snapped weakly, and then laughed through it. I swear if you ever... I won't, Dominic said instantly. Just breathe. I've got you. When the first cry cut through the room, sharp and furious and beautiful, Eli sobbed. A boy, Shaw said gently. Dominic's knees nearly gave out. The bond exploded outward, bright, overwhelming, terrifying in its intensity. Eli laughed through tears. He sounds offended. He gets that from you, Dominic said hoarsely, and then, before they could fully recover, another wave, another cry, softer, indignant, no less powerful. A girl, Shaw said, smiling now. They're both here. 2 tiny lives were placed against Eli's chest. 2 impossibly small hands. 2 separate, undeniable presences in the bond. One sharp and curious, one warm and observant. Dominic dropped to his knees beside the bed, forehead pressed to Eli's arm, breath shaking. I didn't know, he whispered. I didn't know it could feel like this. Eli looked down at their children, exhausted and radiant. Neither did I. Later, when the room was quiet, when the city hummed safely outside, when the world felt distant and small, Dominic held one child. Eli held the other. No claims were spoken, no ownership declared, just choice, again, and again, and again. 2 heartbeats joined theirs, not mistakes, not accidents, not political leverage. Family. Eli leaned his head against Dominic's shoulder. We really changed everything, didn't we? Dominic kissed his temple. No. Eli smiled tiredly. No? We built our own, Dominic said softly. The bond pulsed. Whole, steady, complete, and for the first time since the wrong vial, the wrong name, the wrong beginning, nothing felt wrong at all. The end. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you loved it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more amazing content. Drop a comment with your favorite moment, and I'll see you in the next one.